With its razor-sharp tubing profiles, deep section wheels and semi-integrated cockpit, there's no denying that the Liv Enviliv Advance Pro 2 disc is indeed an aero bike. But it's because it's such an exceptional ride that delivers way beyond its aero title that it's made its way into our editor's choice for 2019.
So the Liv Enviliv was launched at the tail end of 2018, and clearly it's an aero bike, as you said, but where does it sit in Liv's range?
Technically, it's the entry level, which at £3,599 is kind of at the upper level, one would say, of an entry level bike. But the core is the same. So whether you're buying the Pro Zero, which comes with SRAM ETAP axis and Quark power meter, or the one slightly below that, which comes with Giant's own power meter and Ultegra Di2 Shimano, the core of the frame is the same. So you're getting exactly the same high modulus carbon, etc. And with the Pro 2 disc, you're getting just the 105, which is by no means shabby.
It's a great group set, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You can't fault it. And unless you are like a true racer or you're looking at going with some data recording, it's absolutely spot on.
So is this Liv's first attempt at a proper aero bike?
Well, technically not. So there was the Liv Envy, which was its predecessor, was it Liv Enviliv's predecessor, and the last production year was last year. But you're comparing apples and pears. They are really quite different bikes. I mean, this has been completely worked from the ground up. And even just looking back at it now, I was doing a little bit of research kind of coming into this, and I just thought, it looks so dated. So it's completely new chassis, we're looking at new wheels, and the biggest difference is the front end, which clearly now has been completely tidied up.
It's so striking, isn't it?
Yeah,
that
it
cockpit is just like, you're drawn to that immediately.
You are. It is a standout feature of the bike, and compared to the Envy, which, like I said, was its predecessor, that's just like a nest of cables. And this new looking stem,
it's quite space age, isn't it? And it looks like it's something from Star Wars or Star Trek or something. Do you know what I mean? It's quite futuristic. Tell me more about it.
It really is, and clearly it's quite big. And I will say this at the beginning: that's not quite the stack that I would normally ride with.
That's a lot of stack, isn't it?
It's not my bike. I'm not about to take a hacksaw and start trimming off any steerer. But you have also, along with being able to knock out some of these spacers, these are around 5mm, kind of half a centimetre space options, but you've also got a 10mm movement forward and aft as well. So you can actually dial it in to quite a bespoke level, even though it's quite integrated. So that's one of the biggest perks of the whole cockpit, that Liv have really thought about individual riders' needs.
Yeah, because I've fiddled about with the Propel option from Giant, which is very similar, obviously.
Yeah.
And integration usually brings complication.
It does.
And
ask any pro mechanic that, and they aren't particularly keen on that.
Yeah, but Giant and Liv have done a very good job in terms of trying to simplify that as much as they can. So the top cap is just one piece with, like, I think it's 4 or 6 bolts up there that you can just take that off and you can actually see where the cables run down into the frame. It
does mean that although you've got the neat and tidy factor of it, and me aesthetically, I just totally love that, but even though the cables are kind of sitting cheek by jowl in there, they're still pretty happy. That's that massive benefit of having hydraulic disc brakes, is that fluid is more or less happy at any angle that you put it in. You know, you're not worrying about the line of a cable and is it going to affect the brake quality. It still runs. So once you have managed to do that kind of several hands, I mean, you said you were travelling with it, so obviously you have to take the front end apart, and it is a bit of a faff, having done that myself.
Yeah.
It's easier with the right length cables.
It is, certainly so. But it's a good system for what they want to achieve. They've done a good job, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And what it is worth doing, actually, is just showing everyone that you've got, as you turn, you can see this rear of the spacers is effectively kind of elastic bands, so it constantly keeps that aero profile. You're not having anything sticking out into the wind, and it's so simple that it's genuinely one of the most kind of innovative designs that I've seen on a bike in a long time. It really is just neat. I like touches like that.
Yeah.
For me, it makes me think the person who designed this rides the bike.
Yeah.
You know, they get it.
Definitely. And I want to continue that just a little bit, because we were speaking about this before. And a nice touch for this system is that if you have it slammed, or if you have it at this stack height, you're not really losing out on the aero benefits, are you?
Yeah. And it's so worth, again, going back to Liv, and probably why I really, really love what they're doing at the moment in women's specific bikes, is that they've got all the data and the information, but they're doing stuff like, so this bike in particular, obviously designed in a wind tunnel on computational fluid dynamic data, but they're using a woman's kind of mannequin in there, which, going on 90% of how women ride, it's different to how 90% of men ride. You've got a woman's profile, it's going to affect the bike differently. So it's just touches like that really make a difference with Liv.
So, the Enviliv is clearly a very fast aero bike, but we test so many aero bikes, and some are let down by the fact that, they assume that we're always riding in a direct headwind, but that's not always the case, is it? So, wind comes from all directions, and so a bike needs to adapt and handle.
Absolutely, and there's a lot going on with the Liv here in terms of that. So there are, I suppose, the geeky bit, if you like, the aero system tubing profiles that they've used, wind tunnel tested, and computational fluid dynamics. So there's a lot of data that's gone in, and the key thing to know there, that it's not just about riding fast in a straight line. They've looked at angles of yaw, which is side wind whilst you're going in a forward propulsion. So they've looked at that data. They've also, as I previously mentioned, used that data along with a female rider, which in terms of things like pelvic tilt puts you in a slightly different position, and used all of that information to come up with the tubing profiles and angles of the bike. And they've also prioritised aerodynamics and stiffness over weight. Not to say that it's particularly a heavy beast. I mean, it's just over 8 kilos for a medium, which isn't too bad for an aero bike. It's not kind of carrying anchor by any means. There's also these wheels that we mentioned, the 2 different sizes going on there. And the thing to kind of take home from there, I suppose, is the fact that they've worked out in terms of angles of yaw and side profile winds that this balances you out. So indeed, real rider experiences. I ride a lot in the Peak District, and you get that, the gaps between hedges where you're riding along and all of a sudden, it's...
You get picked up, basically.
Yeah, totally, yeah. And even out in Nice recently, when we were doing the filming for this, exceptionally windy days, it really, really... I was concerned that it might snatch me across with quite a deep section at the rear, but it just doesn't. It's just everything together. It's the sum of its parts, and they've done so much work on this. And it's just rapid in all winds. Even when you're concerned about someone sitting tight on your rear wheel, very rarely will it even just make me kind of lean into it or snatch me slightly. I've had worse experience with other well-known wheels with bladed spokes, and even driving a Skoda around the M60 in Manchester the other day, I was more concerned about being caught by the wind than this aero bike.
So you mentioned you ride a lot back home, which is up near the Peak District.
Up north.
Very hilly, very hard.
Yeah.
You've become a hardened northerner.
Certainly do.
In that time. How has the bike performed in that local area?
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I've gone completely native with Liv. If you'd asked me even a couple of years ago about women's specific bikes, I don't even know, sitting on the fence. I was quite adamant that I didn't really see the value of a women's specific bike and geometry, and you need to ride the best bike for you, which you still do. Totally wouldn't, not agree with that statement, but it's just sublime to ride. Honestly, getting on this bike last week and having not ridden it for 6 months, I just find myself like hooning around like a loon on it again. Just everything from the confidence that it instills in terms of tyres, and we're looking at, Giant's own brand here, and I'm a bit of a tyre geek really at the end of the day, and it's got the whole package. Stuff like the narrower handlebars with reduced drop and reduced depth, so you can actually physically change gear and brake from the hoods as well because of the, you know, the hydraulic disc brakes. It just does not skip a beat. I really, really love it. It's one of those bikes where you feel pro again. And it's been a long time since I've pinned a number on my back, got to be honest. But you just feel like 10 women when you're riding it. You know, it's just unflappable, unstoppable, and you can get yourself in trouble because all you want to do is race anyone that you're with, and suddenly you find yourself sprinting for road signs again, and your legs haven't necessarily got that power. But I mean, it's not a mechanical doping by any means, but it goes a long way to giving you a little bit of va-va-boom in your life. I could go on all day about this bike, and it's clear my love for it is the reasons why it's made it into this year's Editor's Choice.
Definitely so. It is a great looking bike as well, like that colour scheme. Although subtle, it's quite poppy, isn't it?
Mint.
And if you have liked this video and the Liv Enviliv behind us, then do like and subscribe to the Cycling Weekly YouTube channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell as well to see all the latest and greatest content from the Cycling Weekly team.